Hey there, Fletch from All Things Overlanding here, and today I'm going to be talking about rigs, and specifically, how do you know when your rig is done? And what I mean by that is, I see people posting in like newbie overlanders group that I run, or a bunch of Facebook groups saying, I just can't wait till my rig is done. And a buddy of mine, Grant, Arkansas Off-Road is his YouTube channel. He's posted a few times, and that's kind of made me think of this topic. Is he said, God, I just wish that this rig could be done so I could go enjoy it. And so today I wanted to talk a little bit from, my experience. I've been doing this for probably about 9 years across 3 different rigs now. Been doing the YouTube thing for about the last 5 years. And so I just wanted to kind of touch on my thoughts for when a rig is done and kind of what to think about and how to approach that, right? Like how to kind of get around that head trash of when is my rig going to be done so I can go camping or overlanding, right? So today I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about rigs. I'm going to talk about when is it done and how to kind of approach that, at least in my opinion, based on what I've learned. So if you want to learn more about, how to finish a rig or when a rig is finished, or how to think about when a rig is finished, stay tuned.
Understand where it came from, but you got it, my got it. It began in the land of the sandstorm. I fought it, though I wanted everything to do with what you gave to me. Loosening my grip.
All right, guys, so as I mentioned today, I'm talking about rigs and when are they done. So a brief history of me. I had an Xterra about 9 years ago. I bought that Xterra. I've had it for about 4 years. I put about 60,000 miles on it. I beat the living you-know-what out of it. It was a fantastic truck, made a lot of modifications, lifted it, put 33s on it, built a drawer system for the back, put a rooftop tent on it, switched to a different rooftop tent, added an awning. I had a bunch of different setups on that truck, and by the end of owning that truck, I actually felt pretty good about it. I really kind of knew where everything was. I felt confident in it. I had the awning, I had the rooftop tent, I could set up and tear down really fast. I felt really good about it, but it was still basically mechanically a stock Nissan Xterra on a 2.5-inch lift with 33s. So it didn't have a rear locker, it didn't have any of that stuff. It wasn't built, it wasn't really fully armored. So I kind of was like, you know what? I could put some money into fixing this thing up and, putting armor on it and doing all that stuff. Or another deal popped up for actually this old truck that I'm sitting in now, this 2008 Frontier. This thing is fully built, high clearance front and rear bumpers, sliders, fully armored underneath, recovery points all around. So it just seemed like a good upgrade at the time to move to a different truck that was already built. Did that, had a few mechanical problems with it, almost all of which were due to the previous owner misdoing timing chain guides, unfortunately. That kind of fouled out the cats, the injectors, the spark plugs, all that stuff. So just kind of over the last few years, I've had a couple of problems with it that spawned from that. And so that was kind of what led me then to my current vehicle, which is a 2023 Nissan Frontier, which I really love, and it's starting to get more built. But I bought that thing brand new, bone stock. So obviously then I had to start over, right? I had this truck kind of built. It was built mechanically. It was built suspension-wise. It was a big lifted truck. It's really capable, could go anywhere, had a rear locker in it. But so then from there, then to go back to the newer truck, I did get the newer transmission. I got the newer engine. I got all the nice tech and all that stuff as well, which was really nice. That was a nice upgrade. But I had to completely start over my entire build, right? And so now I'm on my third truck, I'm building it out, and I'm just doing more and more. And I keep kind of thinking to myself, I'm like, when is this going to be done? When is this going to be done, right? And again, I mentioned Grant, Arkansas Off-Road. And sorry, guys, I'm going to sweat in this if you're watching on YouTube or on Spotify. I'm sitting in the truck, but when I run the air conditioning, it's so loud, I don't want to hit you guys with a ton of weird audio noise. So I wanted to just be quiet. So I'm just going to deal with the heat for the length of this. And then, anyways, apologies for sweating. It's 95 degrees outside. But so then I saw Grant, and he's been posting, and I mean, his truck is just amazing, right? He's done the suspension multiple times on it. He's got a ton of flex. He's extended the shocks. He's extended his lift. He's got this tray sort of bed system in the back with a full, Aussie style build out on it with a, just an amazing setup. He just put a new rooftop tent on it, but like he's posted a few times and he's like, dude, he's like, every time I think, okay, I'm done, this is good, I'm going to stop and I'm going to go camping more, then he changes his mind or he adds something else. And then it just kind of defeats the purpose, right? Because when you're building a truck full time, all the time, and constantly changing your setup, you never quite get to enjoy it. So let's break this episode up into a few different sections. First, I'm going to start by talking a bit about, I think, the way to approach building a rig. Okay, so like what to think about, what thoughts to kind of run through your mind. Hopefully this will be inspirational, give you some ideas so that you can then, make some good decisions about your build and how to approach it if you're newer and you're just starting out. Then second, we'll kind of get into, if you're more like me and you're a little bit further down the road, if you've got multiple vehicles, if you've got something that's pretty built out, but you're thinking of changing things or thinking of doing things, right? How to approach that. And then finally, we'll just kind of wrap it all up by talking about kind of my plans and what I'm thinking, moving forward, what my goals are going to be for the truck and kind of how I'm approaching the build on my new truck. So first of all, talking about if you're newer and you're kind of approaching the idea of a build. What I would say, and this goes in line with what I say all the time in like my Newbie Overlanders Facebook group, there's a link to that in the description down below. If you're looking for tips and you're newer, that's a great place to get some ideas. Is, take what you got and go with it. And that applies for rigs too. Most of the time when I say that, I'm talking about gear. I'm talking about, people that are saying, I want to buy a rooftop tent and an awning and a drawer system and a fridge and all this stuff so that I can go camping. And you don't have to have all that stuff to go camping. Same with the rig, right? Like recently in the Newbie Overlanders group, somebody posted up something about, I think they had like a pretty stock F-250. And they're like, I have a pretty stock F-250. What should I do first? What do I need to do to make it capable enough to go out and find dispersed camping and get out there? And I'm like, dude, an F-250 will do a lot of stuff, Yeah, it's a big truck. You wouldn't want to go down super tight Michigan trails or Wisconsin trails unless you don't care about pinstriping. But that's just the size of the truck. If you have a full-size rig, you got to be used to that. You're going to have pinstriping. You're going to have potential, body damage and things like that from narrower obstacles, places like the Ozarks, places like, Kentucky, potentially, Michigan, Wisconsin, that kind of thing. But as far as the truck itself and how capable it is, you can go to a million places. If you follow the channel for any period of time, you will remember that I had a Lexus IS350 that I lowered and also put a bunch of aero on and did some stuff too. And that was about the time that this truck broke down. For a couple of months, it was broken down. And I, took it to a shop and I ended up swapping out the rear axle. The axle broke. I ended up swapping out the whole rear end for a Titan rear end, and it was gone for like 3 or 4 months. So during that time, I'm like, I'm not going to not go camping, right? So I literally loaded the trunk of a lowered Lexus IS350 and drove it out into the woods. And I had a great time. I would actually argue, and if you go back on the YouTube channel and you watch some of those videos, I kind of had a little bit more fun because like on the highway, the car was really great. It had a ton of power. It was comfortable. It had some nice luxuries, heated seats and stuff, remote start. It had some really nice luxuries, and it was really fun to drive on the highway to get down to the place where I would go camping, which is my local national forest. So again, where I'm going with that though is if you're newer, do not be intimidated. Do not think you have to super modify your vehicle. You don't have to do that. Take what you got. Go out 3 to 5 times would be my recommendation. Take notes. Write down the things when you get home and you're like, man, cooking really sucked, right? If that's like a pain point for you, write that down, make a note of it, and think about why. Right? Why did it suck? Was it because you didn't have a good stove? Was it because you had too much gear? Was it that you have a stove and plates and bowls and spoons and forks and all this different stuff that you bring with you and it took up half the rear of your truck? Like, do you have too much gear? Do you have not enough gear? Is there places where you've got gaps in your setup? Think about it that way. But again, just get out and start exploring and you'll find out really quick. Instead of starting from, hey, I see all these trucks on Instagram or I see all these trucks on YouTube that are on 6-inch lifts and they've got, crazy big tires and they've got all these modifications. So yeah, if you are newer especially, you definitely want to think of it in terms of, going out with what you got, learning, and then prioritizing your spend, just like you would with gear on your rig. And as far as when it's done, right, when you're newer like that, you're going to figure it out, right? Like there's some people that require very little. They may have like a gazelle tent and they may have like some sort of like a chuck box or something like that for their cooking stuff. And they go out all the time and they have a great time. Then there may be people like me that are a little crazier that have full drawer systems built in and a built-in fridge that stays 24/7 and, a rooftop tent and an awning that's on the truck all the time and ready to go. So you can super fast set up, be really comfortable, have a lot of conveniences and things like that. So as far as when it's done, you'll know when you know, right? But don't ever let the rig not being done keep you from getting out. So now as far as part 2 here, how am I going to approach it? Or how would someone that's a little bit more built out approach it? Like how, based on what Grant said, Arkansas off-road guy, he's like, man, I'm so frustrated about the fact that I can never actually go out and go camping, or I can't enjoy it because it's not done and that sort of thing. He has a lot of modifications happening. He does a ton of them himself. He's got some that are being done by shops, which can add time and downtime for the vehicle. And so when you're doing that, especially like what I mentioned earlier, when my truck was at a shop to have the rear axle done, it was really kind of depressing for like 3-4 months to not be able to take my truck that I love out camping and instead go in the Lexus. Now, again, as I said, the Lexus was kind of fun in its own way, but you build these rigs to take them out and go camping. And when you can't do that, it gets pretty annoying. So as far as like the people that are more advanced or more, built out in their rigs, what I would say is prioritize your modifications for downtime. So the way that I'm kind of approaching that right now is, it's summer, it's hot, it's miserable, I hate this weather. I do not like to camp in the summer. For me, camping season is like September through like April. So like I love to go fall through winter, and I love the colder the better. I love super cold, negative temps up in Michigan with feet of snow. That's my jam. I just think it's fun to wheel in. I think it's fun to camp in. I think it's beautiful. I think it's neat to explore. There's less people out. There's no bugs, right? So for me, I try and get all my stuff built out in the summer up until the fall. So like right now on my new truck, I just put on a brand new Z1 steel front bumper that allows me to mount a winch on the new truck. It's got recovery points on it that are better than the stock ones that came with the truck. It's more armored, obviously. So if I were to, come in contact with a rock or something on the front of the truck, it's going to protect the engine and the radiator and all that stuff in there better than, what that stock plastic bumper is going to do. So I'm doing that. I'm changing out. I'm waiting on Extrusion Overland is working on, and it's probably going to be late this year, early next year, but a sort of like a cap system. And I'm hoping to swap out to that so I can protect my fridge that's in the back, my drawer system, keep it all out of the weather. I just put on a new rooftop tent maybe 4 or 5 months ago for this year, for this season. So I'm going to be using that more and more. I've already spent probably 10 or 12 nights in it, and it's been awesome. So I'm doing a lot of my build stuff right now. Even though the weather's not exactly perfect, even though it is a little bit hot and sweaty to be doing work on the vehicles now, this for me is the time to get it done, because then I want to be ready for when the season rolls around so I can just go out and enjoy it and not have to work on the rig and wrench on the rig all fall and winter long. So again, prioritize the stuff that you've got to do if it's something that you need to do. So if it's like maintenance or something like that, obviously you don't really have a choice. If you need to do some maintenance, you just got to do it. But you can prioritize that stuff, right? If there's some stuff that's maybe like, hey, I probably should do brake rotors and pads soon, you may not have to do it right then if it's peak camping season. You may be able to say, I'm going to go ahead and buy this stuff. Maybe I'm going to put it in the garage. I'm going to plan to do that right after the season ends. That's when I'll do the brakes, right? So there's things like that that you can do. You can prioritize. You don't have to do everything the minute that the idea pops into your head. You don't have to miss out on a month of camping time because you want to do a modification to your vehicle. So again, prioritize. I would recommend, my advice would be, if you are building a rig and you've been building a rig for a couple years and you're constantly sort of tweaking it and messing with it, try and do that stuff during the off season. Try and prioritize your maintenance and stuff like that based on your camping time so that it doesn't interfere with that stuff. So now let's kind of wrap this thing up with kind of my final thoughts on like what I'm doing, right? So as I mentioned, I've got a brand new Z1 steel front bumper. I've been talking to them. They are working on a rear bumper, and I'm really excited about that. I'd love to get a rear bumper with a swing out so that I can mount my spare up and, maybe mount a chainsaw, basically kind of rebuilding what this truck is, right? Like kind of making it a little bit more similar to this with some more high clearance in the rear so I don't have to worry about body damage or anything like that when going over obstacles. So I do have plans for the truck, but again, it is right now, as I'm making this video, it's August. So I've got maybe a month and a half, 2 months at the most to continue the build and kind of get the main things done. And then by fall, I want to have everything ready to do. Another big thing that I'm getting ready to work on right now is my drawer system that I built myself. I love it. It's a little heavy, but it's perfect. It has just a ton of capacity because I built it as a literal 44 by 44 square. So it has just a ton of capacity in these drawers. So my thought with that is I'm actually going to build in power. So I'm going to build in dedicated spots for all my gear. My drone, all my stuff that I've got, especially with the cap coming where everything's going to be enclosed and sealed. Nobody can get to it from a security standpoint. I'm going to be building like a powered drawer system as kind of my next idea for a DIY thing that I want to do. And I've got, like I said, a month or two to do that. I want to get that done by this winter so that then I can just have all my stuff in there. So for example, I have like a camping lantern that I bring. I've got my tiny rappel, my flex tail tiny rappel that keeps the bugs away. I've got all this gear, right? And right now I have to like gather this all up when I get back from a trip and take it inside, remember to charge it, remember to put it back where it goes in the rig. It's just a pain in the butt. What I want to do is I want to have my auxiliary battery, which is in the bed of my truck on the new build. I want to have that where it's basically, I've got essentially an inverter running into the drawer and then dedicated cables going to dedicated spots in the drawer to basically make it so everything is always powered, everything is always charging. It's off the auxiliary battery, so I don't have to worry about killing the starter battery or anything like that if things would overdraw. But these are small, like USB-C based charging things, right? But just to keep everything topped off and ready to go, so I don't have to worry about that. That's my goal. Dedicated places. So I'm working on that right now. But again, for me, I'm going to be working on this through the fall until fall comes, and then I just plan to go camping. I'm going to enjoy it as much as I can. I'm going to have my oil change done right before fall. I'm going to, make sure that everything is up to snuff and ready to go, and then I'm just going to go and enjoy camping. So whether you're new or whether you've been doing this for a while, again, if you can prioritize when to do your maintenance stuff, when to do your build stuff, do it outside of prime camping time. Base it on your experiences, not on what you see online. Don't just watch someone else's build and then try to mimic that and feel like you have to have your truck down for 6-8 months while you're building it. And then camping season's over and you've got to wait another 6, 7, 8 months before you can go again. So just get out there, explore, learn what you need on your build, do it slowly. There's no reason to, you don't have to buy a truck and then build it to the hilt and make it a SEMA show car, right? So anyways, hopefully that's helpful for you guys and girls. If you've been thinking about this, I'd love you to post up any questions or anything that you've got in the comments down below if you're on YouTube. If you are on the podcast, if you're listening on the podcast, feel free to jump over to my other social channels, which are linked in the description down below, and join the conversation. Or, add the podcast as a favorite, give it a 5-star review. That helps a ton. It helps other people find it, and it just helps things keep going. Also, down below this video, if you're on YouTube, is a join button. That's just kind of a passive way to support the channel. So if you want to get early access to the podcast, to the other videos that I do, that's an easy way to do it. Or if you want a more active sort of participation piece with all things overlanding, there is a link to my Patreon page, which we have a 24/7 Discord where we all kind of chat about rigs and gear and stuff. We do a once-a-month Zoom call. We're doing a couple trips every year too, so tons and tons of fun there. And then that newbie overlanders group that I mentioned a couple times, that is a great place to go, especially if you're newer or if you're just tired of the bullying in the big groups and you want to, go someplace that's a little bit more friendly. So again, I hope that this was helpful for you. If it was, click that like button. If you're on YouTube, if you're on the podcast, again, favorite it, leave a 5-star review. But thanks again for watching. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.